Welcome back, everyone, to the second edition of Talks and Takes. We appreciate everybody returning. Remember, our format's fast. We got 5 minutes on 10 different topics, and we're going to jump right in and start first with our first topic, changing the narrative around exercise. If you missed it, there's a great video that went viral about our Vice President Harris working out on the Lincoln Memorial steps. So regardless of your political affiliation, it's great to see our elected officials demonstrating a commitment to exercise. If you didn't hear the news about President Biden as well, in his move into the White House, there was quite the controversy about his Peloton bike and the ability to move that in so he could continue his exercise routine. So there really is a changing narrative around exercise. We've also heard, of course, famously the governor of New York talk about how gyms were so important and they weren't the cause of spreading COVID-19, among other politicians that have shared a similar message. So the narrative is changing. We have a long way to go. As we've talked many times, you'd be hard pressed right now to find someone that would disagree with the statement that being physically active is good for you, whether that's politicians, or the media or individuals. Everybody pretty well understands that that's right. What we need to do, of course, is move the needle so that when we define exercise, we define it in new ways that are inclusive and something that's achievable for people in all walks of life and all stages of fitness so that they can participate on a consistent basis.
And I think that's going to be key, Brent, because we have this great platform. We've been talking about this great platform. The platform is COVID-19 and people that were fit were not getting sick. So that's a great platform to say this must be also good for a lot of other things. One of the big issues is that when people think about exercise, they think about their friend that's in the gym for 2 hours a day, or they think about, and I think a real opportunity here is to get people to have their own description of exercise and something that they'd be willing to do, I think, more spatially than temporally. Like we always think that, really intense and this much instead of every single day. So get people to start to think about how to do that as a habit every single day, I think is going to be critical. And that very thing, not how do we get everybody into the gym, but how do we get everybody to start moving? That would bode very well for our entire industry.
Yeah, Blair, you bring up a good point. The dosage of exercise for efficacy in disease prevention and health is much smaller than your typical 2-hour-a-day workout person. It's a much smaller amount for health benefit. You may not lose all the weight you want to lose. You may not be performance athlete in certain areas, but the dosage of exercise for efficacy and disease prevention and health is a lot lower than a lot of typical, fitness people think it might be that exercise regularly in gyms.
And what people look for is activities of daily living. I'm not going to jump out of bed, do 20 burpees, run to the kitchen, guzzle my orange juice, come back, do 3 yoga poses, run back to the kitchen, eat my eggs, they're probably just egg whites. But it's the activities of daily living. And we get very enthusiastic as fitness professionals that we're going to get them in the gym. They're going to do weightlifting. They're going to add a cardio element, and they're going to do some mind body. We have to be a little gentler with our approach. And I think that'll be more inclusive of individuals that maybe never exercised with us before or are finally just returning.
And I think so some people have already heard me say this way too many times, but I have to keep saying it. It's teach them how to pack a damn gym bag. Teach them how to make the decisions for tomorrow tonight. Make all your decisions for tomorrow tonight. That increases your chances, because when I'll say it's the shoulder times around the time you're going to exercise that people struggle so much with. And I think we'll see this in some of the trends like in home fitness. And Sara, you brought up the other day to us just how much life inside your home can disrupt your plans to exercise if you're doing it only at home.
That's right. And Yeah, Blair, you and I were having some of those same discussions with our industry messaging team the other day, and there's really becoming a shift by the leading club operators as well to talk about behavior change. And what we're really trying to do is change this behavior modification, if you will, to include exercise, and that's a big part of it, no doubt about it. No doubt
Exactly.
about it.
Yeah, to include the exercise, to include the nutrition, to include the mind, body, the mental health. So we're not just serving them with fitness and exercise, it's a lifestyle. And that's our approach.
And has to be part of every day. Think of what you can do for 100 days in a row. That's how I like people to start to think about exercise. What can you do for 100 days in a row? If you can do that, you'll be biting off just the right amount.
Right. So now we're on to the GYMS Act. And Blair, I know you're going to take us and talk a little bit about this, but we want to show people something that is really important for people to understand.
So this is the GYMS Act dashboard, and it's available to anybody. You do not need to create an account, log in, or password. As a reminder, the GYMS Act, HR House Resolution 890, the GYMS Act of 2021 is a $30 billion, if passed as is, a $30 billion carve out for the fitness industry in the form of grants, up to 45% of your 2019 gross revenue or $20 million, whichever is less, with supplemental grants that bump that up to a maximum of 25 million, depending on how hard hit you were. The effort here, let me simplify this. We need 218 co-sponsors. That is our objective. See that number 14? That's how many we have right now. There are a lot more commitments already out there for co-sponsors, including a couple more from our state, but it doesn't happen immediately. It takes them a few days to talk to the clerk to make sure they get their co-sponsor signature on there. The most important things here is how our industry is going to influence this. And this dashboard can tell you a lot. I'm going to dive into just a couple things, and I'll shut up and let you guys kind of react to this. You'll see an area here called Top Targets, and we will be sharing this link to this dashboard. Top Targets right below the 3,124 grassroots emails that were sent out to Congress. What I noticed this morning here is, of the 7 top targets, 3 are from Georgia, 3 are from California. These are people that are critical for us to get on here. So I'm going to call out a really good friend of mine, Mark DeGorder, down in Georgia, was COO of Workout Anytime. He's retired, and he is spending his time influencing this. And this is all about influence and how we are going to use our influence, not just to influence the people that are just in your district, but once you get the person in your congressional district, how do you influence other club owners in other states so that they can also get more on here? If we can get 218, we think we've hit a threshold. This isn't necessarily about getting in this $1.9 billion stimulus bill. This is about exposure. Even if we don't get in there, if we get enough people as co-sponsors, we might get into the next one. We'll at least be in all the conversations from here on.
Yeah, that's an important point, Blair. Just to drive that home, a couple of things. One, this list of top targets, one of the reasons they are the top targets is because they're part of the small business committee that's going to review the bills and the language around those. So that's why they're really identified as sort of top targets. And also to Blair's point, although we'd love to be in this current relief bill, the reconciliation bill, if you will, what we already know is there's been like 400 proposed amendments to this, and they've sort of closed the door already on any additions or amendments to the bill at this point. So we're really playing this for the future, for the next opportunity that arises to make sure that we're included in that, just to be clear with everybody.
So Kevin McHugh saying also, you have to make the call. There are 3 levels of engagement you need to do here. You need to have an email to your district U.S. representative, to their staff, a personal email to their staff. That we don't want thousands to go to the chiefs of staff, right? You want your story to go there. Then IHRSA has created 2 one-click campaigns, one for the industry and one for our gym members. All of those need to be activated, but it's really important that you do the work, that you actually. I stayed in on my district, Kim Schreier. She did a town hall meeting last night live. I was on it asking questions about fitness and HR 890. They brought my question into the town hall meeting, and Kim Schreier said, I'm not sure, but I am going to make it a part of HR 890. A lot of ways to get out there and influence it. Know where the town halls are, and if you're also a leader in an alliance, you can attend any other district and have influence.
They had a wonderful meeting just yesterday for the Illinois Fitness Alliance. Stephen Schwartz manages it with Gail Landers. They did a terrific job, just a 30-minute, quick 30-minute down and dirty, click on this, do this campaign, reach out to your representatives. And it's incredibly important. And it's not just for owners and managers, you guys, it's for instructors and trainers and your club members. We need to prove to our representatives that we care and click those buttons. It's so simple. I did it yesterday. It's so simple to click it, and it's nice to personalize it a little bit. You can always personalize it. People want to hear your story, why you think fitness is important. And there's so much money out there. I mean, I hear $30 billion. I'm thinking, oh my God, it's like I can send all my kids to college and grad school, right? But it's a grant. We do not have to pay this back. We get this money back to keep these people employed in the industry and help service health and wellness. This is not just about our own pocketbooks and keeping our businesses open. This is about helping our communities.
All right. So, Sara, you just keep on going. You're in charge of the next topic. So the holistic trends, and I know you've got some video to share as part of this as well.
And this is so important for us. This came from a 100-page report that was packed with insights and is from the Global Wellness Summit for 2021. These are the trends. I tend to be the trends chick, okay? Not that anybody else couldn't be a chick, but I assume that role. Number one, Hollywood and the entertainment industries. You guys, Beyonce and Peloton are working together. I love it. And they're celebrating music, pro-social initiatives. I don't think anyone would celebrate anti-social initiatives. And the first thing they're going to celebrate is homecomings. And they're focusing on historical Black colleges and universities and all type of fitness programs. The music that Beyonce is going to be putting out is very uplifting, motivating, inspirational. She's going to be doing this through cycle programs, yoga programs, HIIT programs, etc. That's number one. Number two, they talked about immune health. We talked about this just a second ago. But one thing that I find interesting is personalized nutrition. So I want you to think about that. My son's getting his PhD in bioinformatics, and he's always looking at, spit in a jar, find out what you're allergic to, see what type of fitness program is going to work for you, and see how you can create your own immunity. So don't go spitting everywhere, but start balancing yourself is important. Spiritual and numerous moments in architecture. I know, Bill McBride, you're into this. You can chat about this. But it's not just about our homes, it's about our centers and making it really feel like this is something we are going to be inspired by. Just breathe is number 4. We know this is like the woo-woo side of wellness, but it's very important. Drug-free medicine. It costs nothing, and we've got apps out there. It's a terrific way. Start thinking about having meditation programs at your facilities. Self-care renaissance, where wellness and healthcare converge. It's all about lifestyle, holistic. We chatted about this a little bit, and again with the personalization. Number 6 we're talking about is adding color. Now, what I want you guys to think about is 13% of our population, according to the official census for 2019, are Black or African Americans. That's only 13%. 60% are non-Hispanic whites, but 18.5% are Hispanics and Latinos. Don't forget about them. Think about using them in our branding. Think about integrating this. These are very important populations. Also, 6% are Asian. So try to incorporate this into your marketing. And I think that's what Peloton did with in integrating Beyonce into their programming. Resetting events is number 7. You guys think about your events. It's very important to keep them integrated. Number 8, money out loud. Make sure what you're doing is you're thinking about venture capital, private equity, educate yourself. And the year of travel reset, I want to see you in September at IHRSA.
I think that what Peloton has done and what they're doing with inclusiveness, all you have to do is take some of their rides, watch who their instructors are, but now notice how those instructors are showing up as celebrities in other people's ads. There's a point in one of the Super Bowl ads where the guy's on the barbecue and he looks over and he says, "Emma, I don't plank." Well, it's Emma Lovewell from Peloton. So.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, Bill, this is a good segue into the next topic, which I'd like you to lead off on, if you don't mind. And I know you've got something to share, another viral video first.
Walk away. Then I'll push you away. Hey. And I don't want you near me. If you had just kept your fucking mouth shut and not played games, I'd be working out and you'd be minding your own business, but you want to be a big guy and you want to play games. Sure, at least you're admitting it now. Well, congratulations, dumbass. I don't put up with shit. I don't mind following the rules and keeping other people's health in mind, but I don't put up with fucking games and fucking shit. You're a joke, my man. You're a fucking joke. So why are you standing there? I've already said it.
Okay, so that was a real video. The guy, the member proclaimed to be a lawyer. Later in the video, he was arrested by the police. Later in the day, the trainer was positioning himself between other members that had complained and the aggressor. But we've been talking about this a lot, the risk issue, this hostility, this conflict resolution, this how do you learn how to de-escalate. This is a prime example of how this person, this trainer, I don't know if he's a club manager, fitness director, trainer, I don't know what his role is, but whatever his role is, he had an ownership mentality of that business. And he didn't touch the guy. He allowed the guy to push him several times. One of our esteemed panelists, Blair McHaney, stated that he might not have been just as calm as that particular employee, him getting pushed around like that. But so this goes back to that. How do you train your staff to be sensitive and understand, the perceptions that different members have about compliance? And so mask is a good metaphor, but it really goes beyond that. It goes to all of our rules and procedures and all of our situations, and it bleeds into, protecting members, protecting staff as a business owner, creating a service hospitality focused environment, being open and inclusive, from a diversity perspective. And we're fighting these perceptions. Gyms are dirty. Gyms are crowded. Gyms are sweaty. Gyms are spreader locations. And we know, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, talked about the 5 locations where we have issues with statistically significant 80% of the cases of COVID. Houses of worship, cafes, bars, hotels, restaurants. Gyms aren't in there. They're not in the top 5. But we still have a perception, and you can still find stuff online that, hey, stay away from gyms. You have more in these other 5 locations and more that are now happening in people's personal neighborhoods and homes. So our industry has a perception issue still. We're working on that. IHRSA's working on that. I've got heavily involved, and Sara's involved, and some other fine people from all over the world, Ireland, New Zealand, Germany, Australia, on the standards committee. How do we elevate the perception of the industry globally? And how do we change media, government, and consumer perceptions of what we really are about, which are some of the things that we were talking about in that holistic trends report that Sara shared with us. So I'd like to open up this topic to the rest of our group here while we have a couple minutes left.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that because I think that ties in really well to one of Sara's topics in holistic trends, and it was that architecture. And I don't know if anybody's seen the ads for the Well, Healthy, Safety seal, but we've registered our 2 clubs here in Wenatchee, and it's going to be quite a process to go through that to get the Well, Healthy, am I getting that right? Well, Healthy, Safety. I think you've got Serena Williams and a lot of other athletes that are really pushing this. And Sara, do I understand, didn't Lifetime already enroll all of their clubs in that?
Lifetime enrolled their clubs, and they have a lot of celebrities, and it's very sexy and very beautiful. But we should also include IHRSA's, health and safety program, our Active and Safe program, along with this more celebrity-driven open public for every business program.
And if you haven't done Active and Safe, you should do Active and Safe. That should be the first thing you do, and use the seal wherever on your social media and everywhere else.
Yeah, and the well, they're doing a lot of advertising. It costs, I want to say, between $3,700 and $4,100, something in that range. Don't quote me on that exact, but the IHRSA pledge is no charge. No charge to members or non-members. So, but I'm impressed with the Well Safety Seal, Well Health and Safety Seal, as well.
All right, the human experience. Sara, we're going to introduce another video for this topic.
And the Fitness Industry Technology Council is a wonderful organization put together by Brian O'Rourke, and it's a not-for-profit consortium. They have about 20,000 members. Brian actually came up with these trends, and because of his experience, I looked at it, thought it was very valuable. Number 1, technology rules. We've looked at this, and if you don't have technology in your gym, in any business, you're going to fail. People have accelerated their technology knowledge, and they want it. They want to make sure things are smooth, are frictionless, and are easy to see and use. Have and have nots. That's also important. If a club has technology, it's really going to push those people out that don't have it. So think about integrating and getting it in. Big tech battles, we see these battles all over the place. And we see it also with some facilities that unfortunately, Gold's 24-hour Town Sports and other that went bankrupt because they didn't have the technology. Number 4 was the well-being shift. We looked at that with our global moves. Everybody wants that. What's human is important, feeling well, feeling healthy. And then the last thing that I think is the most important is redefining human capital. I mean, I get very nervous when I think all I need is technology. All I need is this outsourcing of an on-demand program, and that's going to be sufficient. people want clubs because they want that community, they want that contact. And I know you guys feel this way and see it.
I think one of the best things we could be doing with technology is making sure that we are using it to create better human-to-human experiences. I think that is one of the most powerful things, especially in this industry. And I think one of the things that I've talked with Brian about a lot is the need for the technology companies in our industry. Remember, this isn't a huge space, so there's not usually ton of investment coming into our technology companies. We need to be thinking about how we're building out APIs, how good those APIs are, because if we're going to bring real technology to the long tail of this industry, you're going to be absolutely dependent on the ability for these systems to talk to themselves. I think that's going to be a huge way forward for the industry, which will help the human-to-human connection inside the clubs.
We've talked about chat boxes and having Tidio and having like a decision matrix. I want to know about membership and I go to this, and everything is automated. And at one point I just want to hang up. I'm not going any further down that pathway. You got to have a human element.
Yep. I think we tend to over-index on some of this oftentimes we see a trend and we think that trend is going to continue just like that. And it doesn't. If it keeps continuing like that, then we over-index on something and we got to kind of bring it back a little bit. But technology for technology's sake, no, but technology for improving that member experience, yes.
Right. And personalizing those experiences and customizing it and using that technology to have much more targeted rather than a broadcast shotgun approach to your marketing and your invitations to participate.
We're going to see some technologies that are going to be working well together, that are going to make really intelligent digital marketing that's very targeted, available, what I would say down market to operators like me, 2 clubs in Central Washington.
I think it's very important.
Yep. Bill, go ahead.
The point, I love technology that serves business needs, right? But you can't automate the human relationship. I don't care how good your chat box is, how good your targeting lists are. You still got to take it, use that benefit, but take it to the next place of personalized human connection. And so, how do I learn about my customer base so that I can serve them in an individualistic, purposeful way, person to person? So, I just want people thinking all the benefits of technology in this, metadata and targeting and everything else, but you got to take it and never lose focus on people to people.
We found a huge advantage to personalizing and segmenting the elements of our business, our clients, and focusing exclusively, let's say, on a female market, on a male market, on a personal training market, on an active aging market. And that personalization really, it made people feel more connected, even though it was using technology, using text messaging, etc., emails. It really helped.
Perfect segue to the next normal. This terminology comes from McKinsey & Company. And we're going to share the link with you, and you should go in and access this and watch. They do a great job with these 3 and 4 minute videos based on a ton of research from McKinsey. So one of the things that struck me about this is they're not saying the new normal. They feel like saying the new normal is that there's a landing place after this. What they're saying is that landing place is slippery as hell, and it's going to be changing constantly. So so the next normal is the next thing. One of the points they make is that they're concerned that people are going to lock in too much to the most recent past, because that's going to be shifting tremendously. And so when they talk about changes in what businesses should focus on, a few of the principles in there that I loved. He said, think of it like this: we're going from all-out warfare to hunting a dangerous criminal. And that dangerous criminal is going to pop up here and there, and we're going to have to react to it. And that's going to be going on for a very long time. They are concerned about underinvestment in technology. They said that forecasts are out, dashboards are in. But those dashboards better be able to inform immediate decisions, midterm decisions. Don't get too hung up on your long-term strategy because the ground is moving quickly. I love this idea. Dashboards are in, metrics and insights that align with your customers. This is straight from McKinsey. I ain't making this stuff up. So a lot of their main focus is about the immediacy of information, pitfalls, next phase as a return to what I had before. Biggest pitfall for CEOs. I love what this Bob Sternafel said. He said some of the most inspiring conversations he's had with CEOs, and I'm going to be quiet and let you guys react to this, is how I rewire my organization for speed based on design instead of adrenaline. And think of the adrenaline we had in going into the shutdown.
Well, my first question is, can you do that all the time? Let us know the stuff you're making up versus the stuff that you've actually got a citation to it.
I'm going to do this.
Okay, awesome. I'll jump in first. There's going to be a next normal and a next normal and a next normal and a next normal, because change is evident, right? It's always going to change. And if it's not COVID, it'll be this, it'll be that, it'll be something else. So I think, what we're learning here is don't underestimate the significance of the change that's going to be around the corner. There is going to be change, but don't underestimate it. Because I think, I love that report, Blair. I think it's right on target.
And go ahead, Brent. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, one of the quotes I've shared since stepping in as CEO is crisis breeds progress, it breeds inventiveness, and it breeds bold strategies. And the pandemic has caused that to come out of all of us in our businesses and with the CEOs that I'm speaking with, running either our industry partners, the suppliers, or the club operators. They're all in this mindset that you're describing, Blair, of, it's a new day and it's always going to be a new day going forward.
I think about the change, and it's like hybrid. I keep eating and breathing this word, but I'm also stuck with, well, what happened after 9/11? We thought TSA was just going to disappear, right, after 2001. And it never disappeared, and it's gotten even more regimented. So I think about, how am I going to continue to wear a mask, because I'm not sure it's ever going to go away. So I realize it's next, but things are going to drip in, and we're stuck with them.
They even hit on they sort of hit on, this is a good segue here, they sort of hit on the mental health of leadership in this too. Vivian Hunt, when they're talking about the leaders that they're speaking to, she says, how do you lead in a bold, empathetic, and ethical way? And they that's not trite. I mean, that is going to be critical, because it's one thing to be empathetic and ethical, but you're still going to have to be very bold while balancing those things. Those things oftentimes have been in conflict with each other.
Yeah.
And I love this. When you guys get that link, please go in, watch the videos, and also read the report on the sporting goods industry and see what they are forecasting for 2021 and beyond, and the shifts that are going to happen there, because there's about 8 key pieces that you can actually kind of triangulate to some of what you need to do next.
Right. Yep. Exactly. And as you said, Blair, great segue. So this next topic, the mental health and fitness, is something that really has gotten my attention because there's just so much depression and isolation out there, and the statistics really are startling. So I wanted to share just a few of those statistics with you that I really thought hit home. So here's the first one, that active people are nearly 45% less likely to have depressive symptoms than inactive people. Of course, most all of us listening to this call, that's no news for us. We know that being active and healthy, help protect us and improve our immunity. It also means we're less likely to be depressive. The next statistic, 76% of health club goers, right, our members, feel anxious about their overall health. Now, that's a big number. You're talking about 3 out of 4 members in your clubs whether they've come back or they're coming back soon, or they've decided to pick up on some alternative route for their exercise, they're still feeling very anxious about their overall health. And the next one, 4 in 10 U.S. adults reported symptoms of anxiety or depressive disorder in January. So just last month, this information came out from Kaiser as part of a third-party study that they did. Again, it's pretty dramatic when people at that level are suggesting that. And then this last one, 3 in 5 gym members feel more stressed since the pandemic started than they did at the start of 2020. Again, that's from IHRSA's COVID era fitness report. And I've got just a few other statistics I wanted to share with you as well that came to my attention around this topic. During the pandemic, this is so startling. A larger than average share of young adults, which they qualify as 18 to 24 years old, report symptoms of anxiety and or depressive disorder. Compared to all adults, young adults are more likely to report substance abuse. 25% are reporting substance abuse of young adults, 13% of adults, and suicidal thoughts. And this is the most disturbing to me. 11% of the United States population says they've thought about suicide in the last couple months. 25%, 1/4 of all young adults age 18 to 24 are reporting they've had suicidal thoughts in the last several months. Again, this is third-party data coming from Kaiser. Those are dramatic numbers. And although those might be outside the realm of what health clubs are dealing with, I've also seen it with some of the CEOs in our industry that are running organizations and trying to, as Blair pointed out just a minute ago, balance being bold, being creative, right, being decisive, being empathetic. All those things are a balancing act, and there's a lot of pressure on CEOs that are running their organizations to keep that positive mindset, to keep the spirit up of the people that are following them, and also, put on that happy face with their clients and their customers. So it's really a challenging time, and several of them have revealed personally to me that they're just not in a really great place mentally right now.
There's a lot of silence here because
for me,
I think we all feel this way.
Yeah. It's the childhood suicide issue. Just every time I read it, and now you're reading some of them where they say 24 years old and died unexpectedly. And, they're not getting into some of the details in the news reports, possibly to try and reduce copycat behaviors. But it's just heartbreaking. I mean, it's I read these articles and I'm kind of stuck for, several amount of time afterward because I can't shake it out of my head, how often this is happening. Sara, isn't it true that it's the number one cause of death in, I don't know the age grade, but children or young people right now is definitely number one.
And Bill, are you guys familiar with the work that Victor and Lynn Brick have done?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was going to mention that. Sara, Blair, Brent, and I are all big fans of the John W. Brick Foundation, actually the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation, johnwbrickfoundation.org. They're doing all kind of work on this. They're trying to change the way that the world treats mental health, less about drugs and more about exercise and behavior and holistic approaches. Some of which Sara was sharing earlier.
Exactly, they're focused on exercise, nutrition, mindfulness, about treating mental health with those things. They have personal life experience with this, where the choice of first resort was prescriptions, right? And their work with that foundation, I think, is outstanding. And that's another link that we need to share and get people to go to that as well.
Yeah. And to wrap that topic up here real quickly, there's an opportunity for clubs to play a role in this going forward, to provide programs and make sure people are educated about the benefits of being physically active related to mental health, for sure. Which kind of goes to this next one. I believe you're talking about, Sara, post-COVID training, which probably includes some of these topics.
Post-COVID training. It was really interesting to research it. You want to know why? There's like nothing out there. I am telling you, I was like gung ho on this. And I was like, I looked at Jason Tatum, and he complained it messes with your breathing. COVID messes with your breathing, and he gets fatigued a lot quicker now. It's long lasting. These effects can be. Von Miller from the Denver Bronco, he's got lingering lung issues. We've got Andrew Boselli, who's an FSU lineman. He's 22 years old. He's in perfect health. You would think he would get a very light case of COVID. No, he feels an ongoing shortness of breath and fatigue. These are cardiac effects. And so SCW, we've got 38 different certifications. And I'm like, we need a training on how to deal with these post-COVID people. The Journal of American Medical Association has one article that's amazing, and I'll be sure to share this. But it said that the most important thing is it's inflammatory myocarditis is the effect of what happens with COVID. It's an inflammation around the heart muscle. It's very symptomatic. It's symptomatic in 60% of people, but only about 15% are really affected. If, let's say, you get COVID, like my son got COVID out in San Diego, very little symptoms, but 15% of the people without these long-standing symptoms are going to have long-standing effects. And we need to look at this, and we need to think about this CMR, that imaging, the cardiac magnetic, I'm so bad with this. I'll just leave CMR. The imaging you can do of your heart to see what their effects are. How are we going to train these people? Because you're going to get into an outreach program. They're going to go into physical therapy. Their insurance may or may not cover all this. And they're stuck with us at the fitness center. So how do we deal with it? All right. I know we bashed lawyers a little bit earlier. Thank you, Bill. But we need to have waivers of liability. We need to have, which is really an informed consent form, inform them of the risks, and they consent to those risks, which are everything: death, heart attack, everything. And then we need to also specifically mention COVID in there, that it could be spread. We also need to make sure we get a physician's release form. So if you're going to start a post-COVID rehab program, you need a physician's release form, and look at that form. If it's specifically designated what types of protocol, you better adhere to it. If it specifies a name of a trainer, don't let anybody substitute for them. You're bound by that. And the one thing that I found is, what protocol can we institute? You guys look at exercise and activity after heart attacks. This is the American Cardiovascular Association. Slowly and gradually integrate into a walking pace. That's that activity of daily living. Moderate pace, extended very gradually to 30 minutes. Do make sure that your last 3 minutes of exercise include an adequate cool down. Walk with someone else. Walk with someone near your home for safety reasons. Do cycling or rowing. And they specifically mention water exercise, which I love. Woohoo, that's great. And then ask your doctor before you begin lifting weight. Now, that's something I have a little controversy. Sometimes with heart training, they want you to start lifting before you start walking. But again, I'm going to listen to the Cardiovascular American Society, and I'm going to do what they say. You have to also look at things day to day, because it changes how your timing changes with your food and your medication. And what they stated is cardiac rehabilitation is key, and it's usually covered by insurance company, but it's not always. So they're going to be dumped on us. We need these protocols, and I think we're going to see them from a lot of different companies.
Yeah, and in fact, just in the chat, some people have entered some information. The medical fitness? Let me just bring that up again. They are actually doing some post-COVID training now. There's also a group in the UK. But when you said you do a search and you can't find anything, that just reeks of opportunity to me. Right? I mean, like, for our industry to come out with that next step, of people having COVID and coming out of the hospital, there's probably also a marketing opportunity if you can geofence a mass vaccination site and get and understand where those cell phones are and how to market people that have already had vaccines. It's quite possible to do. So there's two sides. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a big risk with athletes. They don't want to get tested because they don't want it to document that they have something going on with their heart, a heart inflammation, and then be pulled from the team. It's
Yep.
difficult for athletes, but I think we need to have testing, regular testing, get your releases from your physician, not like in January 1 for the year or March 1 when you open your facility. You're going to have to go back to that physician and get it on a monthly basis.
Measuring heart rate during these trainings, I think, is a great idea. Our friends at MyZone and other companies out there, I want to know the heart rate of people I'm training as I put them along. Now, let's talk about some lawsuits, the rise in lawsuits. I'm going to be reading some things. There's 3 kind of lawsuits that are kind of on the uptick right now. Employment lawsuits. You're not protecting me. You laid me off. You discriminated against me when you laid me off. You retaliated with me by laying me off before somebody else. Contract lawsuits, your event was canceled. I disagree with not being able to cancel my membership, whatever those are. And then personal injury. So all 3 of those are kind of on an uptick. It's hard to get a good sense of what the numbers are because we're still early in the game on these lawsuits. And a lot of the courts have been shut down for certain cases. So they've continued those cases and are pushing those out. So it's hard to get exact statistics on where we are in 20 versus 19. But nursing homes, the National Center on Elder Abuse assumes 1 out of 20 nursing home patients have been neglected or injured. Amazon's being sued right now by the New York Attorney General for not doing enough to protect its people. Airlines, healthcare companies, hotels, daycare centers, all on the rise. I do some expert witnessing, and I've gotten 4 inquiries in the last 6 months compared to 4 in the last previous 24 months. So, empirically, when I'm talking to lawyers, it is on the rise. Just like in 2008 during the recession, you have an economic downturn, you have uncertainty, you have chaos, you have people on a rise for lawsuits. So I want Blair. Go ahead, but I want to tell you what you can do about it. Go ahead, Blair. You jump in first.
No, I was going to say I was speaking to an attorney with an insurance company the other day, and she said, in fact, during the shutdown, they started to see this acceleration in lawsuits, and they've tripled on the companies that they cover. They've seen a tripling of those lawsuits, and I also wonder if it doesn't track back to your perceptions and sensitivities, right? Like people have become far more sensitive to stuff during this, and I think that's part of the reason.
Yeah, and then in some jurisdictions you have legislation to diminish some of the frivolous lawsuits, but have it being still wide open. So what can you do about it? Just a couple things. There's a whole list here, but first and foremost, have your emergency protocols well defined and do regular site walkthroughs. A lot of my stuff right now that I'm seeing is something happened and somebody went down and they didn't get to them fast enough because they weren't doing regular walkthroughs from the facility. We have an operational standards of excellence. We do a quarterly audit on every site that goes through every conceivable safety risk you can imagine. Have your incident reports, set right, and you got to train and create so much awareness about risks and have a strategy around managing risks. It's not about compliance and checking off boxes and forms. It's a strategy to reduce risk in your facility in all ways that they can show up for your employees, your members, your vendors, so on. So you really got to take this seriously and protect yourself and do the right thing. And that's why I'm loving working on the standards committee.
And I think,
Bill, I've done some of the expert witness work, as you well know, over the years as well. And it seems like they always come back to these 2 things, most of which you've mentioned: training and documentation. When the rubber hits the road and you're really up there as an expert witness trying to decipher, did they react in the appropriate way? And was it documented? Those are 2 of the critical things that clubs can do and just give a lot more attention to, and that'll help protect them going forward. And of course, having insurance in the first place.
And the informed consent forms, everybody thinks I need a waiver of liability. It's the correct term is informed consent form. Inform them of the risks, have them assume the risks. But the reality is these gentlemen are talking about the lawsuits. It's whether they're valid or not. What's going to happen is they're going to settle. and it's going to cost your club a ton of money. And I would highly recommend you settle very quickly. Don't prolong the litigation. I love, keep my husband working as a full-time attorney. Go for it. But I would settle quickly and I would get out of there. And I think those informed consent forms will also protect against litigation.
Sara, you're absolutely right. According to U.S. government statistics, 90% of personal injury lawsuits settle. But what's interesting, 5% go to trial. But of the ones that go to trial, 90% of those are wins for the defendant. The plaintiff loses. So settle them quickly before you lose on the expense of litigating, because nobody wins when you go to trial with regard to, you may win on principle, but you're not going to win financially.
Absolutely. You end up losing. It's an emotional battle. We know as health club owners that we run things proficiently, that we're efficient, that we do our best, that we try to train everybody. And if they don't show up to the meeting, I did my best to train them. But that's not an excuse. The bottom line is you didn't train them correctly. So settling, getting yourself out of there, and also mitigating the negative effects and the social media and all the marketing and advertising that comes, negative advertising on Yelp, etc., for your facility.
Great. Yeah, good conversation today, Bill. I think you're going to lead us off in wrapping things up before we get into the question and answer.
Yeah, I think we're going to go around the room. And ladies first, Sara, why don't you give us your final thought on what you think you would like to leave the audience with today?
What I would like to leave the audience with today, I think we need to look at post-COVID training. I think that's very important. I think all our facilities should look at that. I also think it's very important that that we look at hybrid training and how we're going to balance the human element and with the technology. We want it to be a smooth, frictionless experience without frustrating our clients. Building that community, staying in touch with them. Don't be afraid of technology, because they certainly aren't. They're jumping in. Make it smooth, make it easy. And everybody's turned a little bit ADD by this pandemic.
Blair, what are your final thoughts?
Well, I spent a lot of time on this McKinsey stuff, and this gal, Liz Hilton Siegel, was talking about the trends that they think are more permanent. It was interesting that she said that this shift towards healthy at-home eating, and at-home exercise, she believes is going to be more fleeting. And then further on, they talk about how human-to-human experience is going to be such a big deal, but that you have to have the information in front of you to constantly be looking around the corner, and don't settle on the recent past as the truth. Hence that next normal. It's changing. There's going to be a new normal. You got to have very, very rapid data. You got to have that high frequency data to be making the right decision.
Awesome. Thanks, Blair. Brent, what are your thoughts as we move into Q&A here?
Thanks, Bill. I've got three, and I'll make them very quick, though. Number one is just changing the narrative, which is one of the topics we talked about. If you went into an audience here in the United States and there were 10 people in the room and you started talking about health and fitness, the statistics would tell you that 2 of those 10 people would belong to a health club. The other 8 would not. And so we need to broaden our perspective about being active, being healthy, leading an active lifestyle that extends outside the 4 walls of the club. And we need to embrace that, not as a competitive view, but as an inclusive view. That's number one. Number 2, Blair did a great job talking about the GYMS Act, but we're at a moment in time right now where we have the momentum, we have people's attention because of the pandemic, and we need to do everything we can to get the government's attention on the plight of our industry. $30 billion is a lot of money, and we really need it to help our industry come out of this in a thriving way. And then number 3, I touched briefly on mental health on one of the topics. And I would just encourage you to be aware of those around you in your workplace, in your community, within your family, in your kids' schools. It's something that obviously is affecting a lot of people. And I think sometimes we just don't even notice it or recognize it. So, have some empathy, have some grace, and of course, take care of yourself as well.
Awesome. I've got a few things to wrap us up before we move into the official Q&A here. One, I love what Blair said on make decisions for tomorrow tonight, pack your gym bag. And that, I've always preached, write 1, 2, 3 things that you're going to get done tomorrow, no matter what happens, you're going to get those things done. And when you do that, you don't have those days that you didn't get anything done. So I think that's pretty brilliant. Happiness, when we're talking about a lot of the topics today, holistic trends, mental wellness, happiness, according to Science Direct, is a standalone indicator of mortality, irrespective of fitness level, irrespective of other things. Now, if you're not fit and you're facing chronic disease, it's a little harder to be happy. But happiness is so critical to what we're trying to do in our facilities. And so when you listen to the trends that Sara shared with us, happiness is one of the boxes that we want to try and help people, check off when they come visit with us and work with us. So, fitness centers are essential. People don't always understand that. We all get that exercise is essential, but we need to make fitness centers essential. So, Brent, with that, I'd like to have you go ahead and transition us into our Q&A section.
All right. Let me see what some of the questions are here. Here's one. It says, do you suggest hiring an attorney to look at the information and content of the forms that we have for our risk management? Sara, and you were kind of talking about that. Do you want to answer that one?
Absolutely. There's 2 forms you need to have, most definitely. Is you need a general waiver of liability informed consent form that just makes people consent to whatever type of injury that they can occur, and inform them of the definite risks and all the different offerings you have at your facility. It's also been recommended that you have a second release, totally independent from the first release. And Bill, actually, you made me aware of that. Not that maybe it's your expert witnessing, or maybe in a previous life you were a lawyer, but you said, Sara, you need to have 2. And I went and did some research. It's a good idea to have a separate release for COVID. And I strongly recommend to everybody, encourage your members. Not only are you taking their temperature when they come in, which really isn't indicative whether they have COVID or not, it makes them feel a little safer, but encourage them to see their physicians and give them a certain time period in which to do it, because so many people have been inactive. I worry that they're walking in with higher level of risk for heart attack, stroke, diabetes, because they're not eating well or they're drinking too much, as we were talking about previously. So we need an informed consent form that's general, an informed consent form that's for COVID, and we also need that physician release form.
I'd also add, take it beyond COVID, because there'll be COVID 20 or some other name in 21 and 22. And so we kind of, in ours, we put infectious disease caused by bacteria or virus, including COVID-19. So just make it so you don't have to rewrite it every time there's a new strain. Make it comprehensive.
And that is very important, because 2 things are happening now. They're saying that the vaccine they're confirming that it will last officially for 3 months. So who knows if we need to get these vaccines again because of the migration of the virus.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, Sara. But I do want to give everybody a resource. So before you go out and hire an attorney, if you wanted to check out Ken Rennig with Rennig Insurance, he's been a great partner of IHRSA, also a great partner of Rex Roundtables, providing complimentary samples of what the language should look like around exactly all these subjects. So you don't have to be their client or want to change to being their client, but they've got some great resources if you want to check that out. The next question is, do you feel the GYMS Act will assist providers and suppliers to gyms, fitness centers, etc.?
Oh, God. I mean, can I just jump in?
Yes, Blair.
Yeah, I mean, give you an example. If it's passed as is, got a 2-club operation here in Central Washington, it'd be about a $1.4 million grant for my clubs here. Think about 45% of your 2019 revenue as a club operator. Take any club operator. And if you've had that much of a dip and it backfilled that, you're right back in the game for CapEx, for getting the technologies you need to do some of the stuff that we talked about on this. In fact, the supplier roundtable that I'm on, I've said the single biggest thing that every vendor and supplier could be doing to secure their future is getting co-signers on that bill. They should be some of the biggest influencers on it, because a lot of them have a lot of employees. I know Precor's been really supportive. Precor has a lot of employees in the state of Washington. It helps them to talk to these congressmen here in the state. So yeah, it would change the pipelines of the sales pipeline of every supplier and vendor if this got passed.
Yeah, and I can add to that based on my conversations with the suppliers. We call them industry partners at IHRSA. Most of them are our members, so I'm in regular conversation with them. And when I've had these conversations about them, about the GEMS Act, about advocacy in general, they're 100% supportive. I mean, they know that how we go, that really affects how they go. They've got some other sales verticals, of course, but if anything, what I've heard overwhelmingly from our industry partners since taking over is that they want to be more involved on the bigger picture items that we're trying to address in the health fitness industry and support that. So yeah, we're planning an event called United We Rise, which will include a lot of our industry suppliers in the next several weeks. And they're all over it. They're wanting to be a part of it in a big way and be a part of that process for sure. To Blair's point, the better the clubs do, the better they're going to do.
And you always look at the negative side of the pandemic. Sorry about the 3 months with the vaccine, Brent. But the positive side of the pandemic is, you know what? You're stuck home. You can't travel. You have to watch the news. You have to pay attention to people. You're not as distracted because you're stuck in one environment. So people became socially more active and aware. People are also focusing more on not as much themselves, but looking as bonding as an industry and growing in that regard. So I think we have some benefits that have come out of COVID.
So take that time while you're at home and reach out to your U.S. representative in your district. And once you get them, start to influence others to reach out to theirs.
Amen to that.
Okay, the next question. What do you say in response to health and professionals and academics who say the fitness industry needs to move past any kind of tips and tricks about joining a gym and getting fit into something that they can really reach the 78% that are not members?
Go ahead, Bill.
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we have relied on appearance and short-term goals and, short-term goal setting in so many of our approaches to telling our story, and creating happiness, holistic approach, immunology, response, well-being, longevity, not just in years, but quality of life. I think that through this, there's a big opportunity to pivot. And the word wellness is kind of overplayed, and my company's name is Active Wellness, but what is wellness? It's such a comprehensive, nebulous term. So I think that the smart operators have got to not make it clinical to the degree that it's not attractive for people thinking that it's not going to be fun, or at least engaging. But we've got to look at where we really add value in people's health and well-being, and we've got to open our tent to a larger audience. We've got to be more accessible for minorities, for people with disabilities, for people that are older and might be in a younger environment, type gym or club. So we've got to be thinking about our full communities here and how we increase the health and well-being of our full communities. So
I'll repeat what Vivian Hunt said in that McKinsey. How do you lead in a bold, empathetic, and ethical way? And that's what our entire industry needs to do, and start thinking more strategically about how you move somebody into an exercise habit. What would that look like if we were very thoughtful about it? Those things have a longer term ROI. What happens, I think, is that so frequently we look at customer acquisition only, get the signature, because it's really easy to explain ROI on that. I spent this, I got these customers, they came in the door. It's much harder to explain your ROI on retention, especially coming out of COVID. But that's where your efforts better be. And part of that retention is going to be bringing people in a way where you're actually really serving them. I couldn't agree more. This isn't about, tips and tricks. This is about understanding the customer who's in front of you. What are their chances of success? And then knowing that session with the trainer should not just be manipulation to sell personal training. That session with that trainer should be, sometimes they ought to be coming out of there saying, here's what you need. You need to be on the treadmill for 10 minutes, 7 days a week. And the reason I want you to do that is just so you can learn how to get ready and then get on to the next thing in your day. Don't really care about the exercise. I care about you creating a habit. Right? And if you put that at the center, that purpose, put that at the center of how you think about it, and then start to design. What did they say? How do you look at all the data in order to design, in order to be purposeful in design and not just be reacting to adrenaline? I think we get reacting to adrenaline too much, dump a bunch of money into customer acquisition, and we forget who we are or what we're supposed to be as an industry.
You're absolutely right, because it's not about a six-pack ab. It's not about the HIT programming. I confessions, I hate HIT programming. I think it's ridiculous because it's just too high intense. It's paying attention to the back of the room. It's paying attention to the person who's walking up to the front desk and kind of looking right and looking left, and do I belong here? And I think as club owners, we also need to pay attention to who's working at the front of the desk, to embrace these people. And as instructors and trainers, what I always encourage them is stop looking at the front row. I could care less about the front row. They want my job anyway. Okay. They probably could teach better than I can. They're younger, they're thinner, and they're richer. Okay. I have to pay attention to the back of the room, and that's going to make me a wellness provider and not just a fitness instructor and professional. So I totally agree with you, Blair. How do we embrace this? How do we approach this, Bill?
Yeah, I've got to jump in first because this is something I'm just so passionate about, really, this topic about getting that other 78%. And to a degree, we have to own up, and Bill touched on this already, that have been our own worst enemy to a degree, right? When we look at the origins of our industry and the, quote, early days, I won't mention any brand names, but it was certainly a sales proposition. That's what it was all about. There's people in this industry now, like all of us, that are very passionate about helping people. We've got to change that dynamic, and we can talk about it, and we have been talking about it, but now we've got to actually do something about it. And I'm going to give you a very specific example. 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to meet with CEOs that ran over a total, I guess, of 160 different leading clubs around the United States. This is just 2 weeks ago. And the question I asked was, how many of you have programs that are specifically tailored to either the mentally or physically challenged audiences that are really not typically part of health clubs? That could be Parkinson's patients, cancer recovery, autism programs, whatever the case might be. The percentage of clubs that raised their hand and said they had anything to share with me was under 10%. That's a problem, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can say we need to do all these things, but when we really look across the spectrum of our industry of who's providing real targeted opportunities, there's not enough of them, and we have to correct that, really, if we're going to reach more of the audience.
Yeah, but let me take it further, Brent, to the salesperson's approach. I'm a salesperson. That's how I started in the industry. And, back in the day, you were trained, sell the dream, sell the aspiration, and our industry from a sales and marketing perspective has sold these wild expectations. And, I think we have to vision of the ownership and management and delivery and sales and marketing reset realistic expectations. I'd rather somebody work out twice a week or even once a week for the rest of their life than to work out 5 times for 2 months and then burn out on it and never come back. I mean, so we have to under promise and over deliver. You know, there's car companies that don't tell you all the features when you buy the car. They save some of the features to tell you some of the bells and whistles later on, or you can discover them on your own. You know, we need to save some of the benefits and some of the cool features that we can over deliver, you know, when they come in to meet with our fitness professionals and so on. And I just think that this image thing is a vision of an organization and a sales and marketing storytelling issue. But it starts with commitment and vision of what you really are about. And if you're really about the person's well-being, then you need to change how you sell memberships and how you market and how you deliver. And you know, so I'm disgusted. I'm as passionate as you are, Brent, that I've spent my entire career in an industry and we're still preaching to the choir for the most part. And we're not, you know, I'm now in an organization where we are one of those 10% that are doing the Rocksteady Parkinson program and doing other programs that are making a difference. But we spent a lot of time just providing, you know, I think Blair calls it just renting equipment to people, you know, and we have an opportunity now to really shift who we are, and it will benefit the industry at large and every single operator.
And
I hear what you're saying. Is it okay if I hear what you're saying, Bill, but I have to tell you, I might disagree a little bit. I know you enjoy when I do that all the time. But I look at, like, what are the fitness trainers? What are the frontline workers, our trainers, our instructors? What do they want? They're flooding to the active aging seminars and the certifications. They're flooding to functional training and corrective exercise. So there is an awareness there. I'm not sure we totally turned the corner and made active, you know, our active aging market, our functional training, our activities of daily living, our wellness being. Meditation has been big. Yoga has been bigger. So I don't see HIIT training being number 1. It's dropped for us well down to number 7 or 8.
Yeah,
so
we didn't disagree at all.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything contrary to that. I agree with you 100%. I was saying that in addition to the aging and the special pops, just the general consumers that are normal everyday people that we set up for failure by creating false expectations. So I'm in fierce agreement with you, Sara Kooperman.
And I think part of what we're seeing and what Sarah's talking about is the marketplace is actually driving a lot of what the trainers want. And I think we have not productized very well around certain solutions. Now, we talked about it today when we talked about post-COVID training. That's coming up with a solution to a very specific problem and then productizing. I think that's what active aging is doing. There was a comment here about that's not what the customer wants, and I'm going to disagree with that. I don't think most of us know what the customer wants because I don't think we measure it very well. What we do is we say people reacted to this type of marketing, that must be what they want. But unless you're really, and especially now, unless you're really listening, you might be making a mistake on what the customer wants. Our marketing has attracted the customer that we deserve to get. That's what. Yeah.
And just to jump in, just for a quick thing, the instructors, they're not the consumer. They're 6 months ahead of the consumer. So I do believe it's coming.
Yeah. Okay. One final question for us, which is, of course, really at the top of everyone's mind right now, is around the vaccine. All right. So the vaccines are available. And the question is really, what are you doing with your employees? Are you going to try and mandate that your own employees get the vaccine? Is that going to be an option for them? Are you going to highly encourage it? What's the stance that's being taken?
I'm going to jump in there real quick. Once it's available at that level, I'll tell you that Congresswoman Kim Schreier last night on her town hall gave me this idea, and I thought it was awesome. We're going to incentivize it. We're going to give an incentive for people to go get the vaccine.
Okay, Blair.
We're going to highly encourage and/or incentivize.
Sara?
And I don't think you can require it, but I agree completely. You've got to incentivize your employees to get the vaccine.
Right. Okay. Hey, we're out of time for this week's Talks and Takes. We hope you enjoyed it, gained some insight and some information There's a bunch of links in the chat to further your education around a bunch of these topics. If you're interested in those, we highly encourage you to do that. And please do come back next month. We'll be back again with the latest news in our industry and trying to give you some insight about what's happening. Thanks again for attending, and thanks to all my co-hosts here, Bill, Sara, and Blair. We'll see you guys hopefully in about a month.